It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to my 8th convocation as the Dean of the College of Communication and Fine Arts. As always, I'd like to structure our time together with 3 divisions of our collective labor, a review of some of our accomplishments this past year, a few exemplars of CFA's commitment to critical and artistic response in repressive times, and then a personal meditation. The partial title of this section makes a reference to obstacles to achievement. And while we have a series of facilities needs in CFA that have been projected, the much needed renovation of Stroop Theater, the realization of a performing arts pavilion, and what will definitely be the Drawlinger Family Stage in Lawton Plaza, all of which will invigorate our programs in theater, dance, and music, that will only begin to garner or serve as a showcase of our programs as well as the entire university. For surely if we at LMU strive to be a world-class university, then there must be a commitment to world-class facilities that foreground the arts and become larger staging arenas, not only for CFA, but for the university as a whole. This, along with other needs in expansion of spaces for studio arts, our studio arts program, specifically in multimedia and design, which along with communication studies and theater are the fastest growing individual departments and units within the college, plus more rehearsal practice spaces in music, which I'm told is eminently on the horizon, not as luxury, but as necessity to maintain our LMU commitments to small class sizes, accessibility, the quality of education that we provide our students, and of course as an element of recruitment. But with that stated, we have maintained our commitments to delivering excellence, which has not been hampered at this time. Trust me, I am strongly advocating for the increased timelines for us to improve all the qualities of the facilities that we have within the college. But with that stated, we have still been able to achieve what I think is greatness. I'm taken every day when I enter campus and see the banners that herald university accomplishments. We are a part of that success. Not just the outstanding reference to theater, but we are a part of the traditional liberal arts and humanities. We are a part of making the excellence that has contributed to our university's high rankings in so many different categories in the environment and space of this campus. And since we have contributed despite what might be presumed obstacles in our achievement, imagine what we can do more if we had more. We are proud of our enrollments and faculty staff makeup, always serving to hire the most qualified individuals to deliver and to inform our curriculum relative to the shifting needs of the programs and the policies of the university. We are proud of our new and evolving community of teacher, artists, scholars, and their many achievements, with Dimitri Kamel, I believe, on this slide, recently receiving promotion to full professor. Thus, this, along with the evolving community of staff within the college, specifically within the dean's office. Here I want to acknowledge and recognize the recent retirement of our dear friend and colleague, Judy Scalin, from the role of Associate Dean, and to welcome and to acknowledge Michelle Hammers, who's now the Associate Dean and is doing a phenomenal job. We've been able to achieve the grand opening of our Academic Advisement Center for Student Success that serves the diverse needs of our students from academic to professional career planning with the assistance of Rachel Van Houten and Jamia McDuffie. Our new CFA faculty publications and creative workbook, coordinated and collated by Judy Delavine, is hot off the presses and waiting to be distributed, with contributions of 50 faculty throughout the college across all ranks, including contributions by staff and students. Our new and updated community engagement booklet will also be soon available, with an ever-increasing number of activities and programs designed to bleed the borders between campus and community, with activities and events that provide not only entertainment, but educational skills and therapeutic services that help in the critical processes of information, formation, and transformation of lives and communities. I am continually proud and grateful to work with Kate Shirley, our college-based communication manager, who makes us look good. There she is in the corner over there. Always getting the word out about the phenomenal work that we are doing within the college, including the production of our CFA calendar of events, with over 100 events across all disciplines of the college, including a range of cross and interdisciplinary programs with other sectors of the university, like our close relationship with the CSJ Center for Reconciliation and Justice and the Marymount Center for Faith, Culture, and the Arts. Our relationship with CPD is strong, and our Career Connections event held each year in the fall brings forth a range of alums who return to LMU primarily to provide insight, direction, and mentorship to the hundreds of our current students who show up for that event. Thanks to our college liaison, our CFA alum and CPD professional, Alina Muslar, Brandon Grimmett, and his whole team for facilitating that event, as they do for many colleges within the university. Our students continue to excel in securing placement in jobs, internships, and externships in major companies and corporations in Los Angeles, in California, and beyond. Our Conversations with series, a staged interview with some of our most noted alums, continues to be strong. This past year, we hosted Gloria Calderon-Kellett and Deshaun Terry, each making their mark in television, in film, and the LA theater scene. CFA was live and center stage in LMU's historic hosting of the Democratic National Committee debates. Our student vocalists made their national debut, singing on themes of national patriotism and pride, with T.J. Harper as a strong and charismatic leader. Our student artists, the group better known as Curbside, along with their faculty mentor, Macha Suzuki, painted a stunning mural on the wall of the Thomas P. Kelly Student Art Gallery that served as the reception location after the address. They received much accolade for their work, and the mural served as a backdrop for the many photos throughout the event. This year, we launched our new MFA in Performance and Pedagogy, only the second graduate program in the College of Communication and Fine Arts, next to our highly successful MFT in Marital and Family Therapy with a specialization in art therapy training. The new MFA program is designed to engage the technologies of teaching theater to working professionals in the theater industry in preparing them for careers in teaching. Currently, under the capable hands of Professor Stacy Sabai, the program has a beginning class of 9 with great progress towards developing the next entering class. And now for more specific and formal references to our individual academic departments. Our Department of Art and Art History continues to offer a range of programs and programming that meet the needs of our students. Programs that are inclusive but not limited to Art Smart, linked with our art education program, our multiple study abroad programs in Rome, Florence, and Bonn, the continued success of Kaleido LA, our speaker series of student exhibitions hosted not only in the Thomas Kelly Art Gallery, but exhibitions that often take over Dunning Courtyard here in the Burns Fine Arts Complex. I would be remiss if I did not give a brief shout out to Nicole Murph, who has just transitioned from the department as a senior administrative coordinator to take a job within the library, which is her new career path as she's working on a master's degree in library sciences. She is sorely missed, but we support her completely. The Department of Communication Studies continues to offer a range of programs and opportunities for students and the broader community by co-hosting and supporting events such as the Justice on Trial Film Festival with our colleagues in BCLA, but hosting the Jesuit Cup debates and the St. Ignatius Dialogues that bring together the critical and intellectual endeavor of college intercollegiate debate in addressing some of the most pressing issues related to social justice, to our environment, and indeed to our world. Our dance program, now under the leadership of Rosalind LeBlanc Lowe as chair, continues to dazzle and amaze with dance as a critical and aesthetic technology of knowing and showing. Their program expands beyond the annual dance concerts to include community outreach through dance education, welcoming guest artists, choreographers, and clinicians, as well as a study abroad dance program in Panama, along with some of our dance students also being invited on a regular basis to participate in some of the most prestigious dance competitions and workshops around the country. Here, I also recognize the recent departure of our friend Carol Jones, who was the Senior Administrative Coordinator in the Dance Department. After completing an MBA, y'all, Carol is now pursuing her career aspirations in banking. She's also missed, but we will soon welcome our new Senior Administrative Coordinator in the Dance Department shortly. Our Department of Marital and Family Therapy continues to amaze as one of the most successful graduate programs, I would say, in the university, with consistent enrollments, with increased time to graduation and in-depth training that leads their students to successful certification exams as practicing art therapists in California and beyond for those who seek appropriate licensure in other states with that training. The program works with a diverse group of clients, from underserved, underrepresented youth populations, pregnant and nursing teens, to U.S. veterans, and more, alongside with a very productive and successful study abroad program, immersion program in Mexico. The students in this program are working artists who are moving towards credentialing to practice art therapy. They engage in art making for multiple purposes that are critical and aesthetic. And once they have achieved, they've also achieved a very high number of stipend awards from the state of California for public mental health services in the communities of need. Our music department continues to thrive and expand. Before her retirement in August, Dr. Mary Brayton completed her final European tour with nearly 70 voices singing and a caravan of supporters traveling along, including a very proud dean. The department continues to offer a range of performance opportunities for students, including the Sinatra Opera Workshop, a burgeoning jazz ensemble, an emerging brass ensemble, the string orchestra, as well as participation in the Undergraduate Research Arts Symposium. Recently, under the direction of our new choral director, T.J. Harper, the chorus not only completed its first choral Christmas concert under his direction, which was a highly successful event, but some of the women in the choruses participated in a professional recording and taping of a music video to the song Underdog by Alicia Keys. In this case, celebrating the under-recognized contribution of women in the music industry, sponsored by the Recording Academy of Music. The recording took place just this weekend in anticipation of the Grammys on Sunday, with the potential of a portion of that video being aired nationally. The image, I think, of that partial recording is in the my upper right-hand side. This opportunity hailed a great success to the ability of our students under the direction of TJ to be both anchored in the traditions to which he has inherited and move towards a broader scope of singing, a broader sense of performance opportunities for our students, with a continued commitment to the anchoring of a strong classical music training. And finally, Theater, now under the fine direction of Professor Catherine Noon, continues to beguile us with stage dramatic performances that speak not only to the talent of our students, our faculty and staff, but also to the critical intellectual engagement of theater and performance to speak to social issues of war, of peace, of tyranny, of hope, of despair, of possibility. Having completed its second year of Summer Shakespeare on the Bluff, a festival with performances of As You Like It and Pericles, the theater program projects its third season this summer with productions of The Tempest and Henry V. The theme that I've chosen for this year's convocation, CFA's commitment to critical and artistic inquiry in repressive times, comes from a number of different places. First, I'm scheduled to present at the International Congress of Qualitative Inquiry later this year, the theme of which is qualitative research in repressive times. Explicating the theme, Congress organizer and critical communication and sociology scholar Norman Denson writes, "In these repressive times, dissident voices are silenced, repressive discourse ridicules the other, testing the limits of civility and freedom of speech. We seek to understand this world, but we demand a performance politics that leads to radical change. It started before the election of the current president of the United States, November 9th of 2016. You could go back 15 years to the terrorist attacks of September 11th, when the U.S. under the Bush administration invaded Iraq under great pretense there were no weapons of mass destruction, and put into place the permanent war of terror. Loneliness, anxiety, uncertainty, and culture of fear followed. Every American was turned into a potential terrorist. We live," he writes, "in a world in which incivility has been elevated to a performance, a pedagogy of self-righteousness, indignation which fuels resentment and anger, hatred and bigotry, manufactured ignorance reinforces bullying and violence, hate crimes are on the rise." He writes, "Increased intolerance, misogyny, racism, ugliness, anger, and authoritarianism gain ground. Demagogues appealing to popular desires and prejudices paint apocalyptic scenes. Hate group targets women and people of color. This is the world qualitative inquiry is called to change and to resist." Norman Denson. "The disciplines in CFA are most often deal in qualitative methodologies." Second, I draw motivation and inspiration from last week's important prayer for peace service, which a number of my colleagues here were in attendance, held on the steps of Sacred Heart Chapel here at LMU, organized by my brother John Flaherty, Associate Director of Campus Ministry, in which varying representatives of our campus spoke. But here, if I may, I want to respectfully echo the words of Rabbi Zachary Zeisman, and through repetition, give his message reinforced purpose to this additional and expansive audience. With deep respect for Rabbi Zach, he began by saying, "Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome. And thank you to everyone who has joined us today to pray for a more peaceful and kinder world. It is important to campus ministry, Muslim student life, and Jewish student life that we welcome all of you, no matter who you are, whether you are religious, spiritual, believer, or non-believer, no matter who you are, we thank you for being here with us today." He says, "A lot has happened in the world over the holiday break that has compelled us to come together as a community. There are the devastating fires in Australia, the ongoing political divide, and perhaps most sadly, There is a concern of a new war in the Middle East, causing concern for many, including and especially our students and young people all over the world. Interest in the draft, incidentally, was so high that it apparently crashed the websites for the Selective Service system after the strike in Iran. Not like there wasn't already enough things causing anxiety. He writes, in the story of Exodus, Moses asks Pharaoh to release the children of Israel from Egypt. But Pharaoh refuses, and soon Moses is forced to bring on the 10 plagues. He says, Moses turns the water of the Nile to blood. Then Pharaoh calls upon his sorcerers who easily duplicate this feat. Moses brings on plague of frogs, then Pharaoh's sorcerers cause frogs to appear as well. The only difference between the powers of Moses and the powers of Pharaoh's sorcerers is this, he says. Only Moses can reverse the plagues. Pharaoh's sorcerers can produce plagues, but they can have no power to revoke them. It takes no talent to bring about a plague, he says, to cause a war and pain and disaster, he says. But it takes an enormous courage and faith to eradicate a plague, to bring about peace, to cure disease, to triumph over darkness. Rabbi Zach, repressive times indeed. In reflection and reference to CFA's commitments to critical and artistic inquiry in repressive times, I want to give you just a few examples of faculty, students, staff within the College of Communication and Fine Arts who are responding in meaningful and deep ways. 1, the promotional materials for Dr. Nina Lozano's new book cover reads as follows. Since 1993, more than 2,000 femicidos have occurred in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, once called the femicido capital of the world. Who is killing the women of Juarez? Why is this happening? In not one more femicido on the border, Nina Maria Lozano seeks to answer these questions, turning a critical eye to the state structures and legal systems that allow and participate in the violence, the rape, and murder propagated against thousands of women in the border town of Juarez. Through the author's 15 plus years of on-the-ground field work, readers are presented with first-hand accounts, testimonies, and now social movement strategies from family members and activists attempting to stop these gendered crimes. The book is getting a lot of positive review, and Professor Lozano is being invited to be a speaker at major events across the country. This is one type of critical inquiry as a response to repressive times happening in CFA. Next, I'm reminded of student John Jack Alving's piece entitled Navigating Skins, which will soon hang in the CFA Advisement office because I purchased it for the college. Yeah. It's a mixed media piece that for me speaks to a range of issues linked with celebrating diversity, humanity, plurality, possibility, and navigating the relationality of being across differences. Often, those differences often associated with the materiality of bodies, with religion, and varying cosmologies of knowing self in the world. The craft of this piece is a construction of the diversity, a representation of the diversity that exists and empowers us all. This is one type of artistic inquiry as a response to repressive times practiced in CFA. In the Heights, an excerpt of which you just saw earlier, for me, it's not just a musical in that sense that people reduce musicals to fancy and frivolity. It is a musical with music and lyrics by Lin-Manuel Miranda, famed writer, director, artist of Hamilton, one of his earlier works, a piece that narrates a story over 3 days in Washington Heights, New York City, in a predominantly Latinx neighborhood. For me, in addition to all the beautiful words and framing that Professor Secret offered, for me, this piece as a whole speaks to cultural struggle. It speaks to survival. It speaks to sacrifice and compromise and community and celebration. It foregrounds the importance of storytelling in sustaining cultural history in as cultural struggle towards survival. It is a piece that is intentionally told to broaden our college commitment to cultural, racial, ethnic, class, gender diversity and representation in repressive times. A story presented as yet as another template of sociality that offers hope and possibility. In this instance, the aesthetic is the mode and medium to and for the message itself. This is another type of critically artistic inquiry as a response to repressive times in CFA. The Laband Art Gallery continues to illuminate our college in efforts of using art and artistic exhibition that focus on current human social issues. Last semester's exhibition of the West Coast debut of artist Antonius Tin Boy invited our community and beyond to consider how intersectional identities are reflected in today's culture. The mostly hand-cut portrait series celebrated multi-layered identities. Each of Boy's subjects is a queer, Asian, American, Pacific Islander who has had or played an important role within the artist's life. Along with the exhibition proper, there was a range of programming opportunities that introduced and proffered diverse queer communities a platform to engage, entertain, but mostly to inform our community of the complexity of gender-queer identity politics. The current collaborative art installation entitled Caravan refabricates cultural craft traditions to address the conditions faced by immigrants in our contemporary moment, now. In addition to work in paper, fabric, metal, and rubber, the visual image of the artists are also translated into an experimental animation that echoes liminal states of migration, of border crossing, and the politics of such human struggles for freedom at the political intersections of place and space. It is an exhibition organized in partnership with the Academy of Catholic Thought and Imagination, particular faculty within the School of Film and Television, and the Latino Art Project in Dallas, Texas, all of which is an exemplar of collaboration and interdisciplinarity cooperation that we need to learn to do more of, not only within the college, but within the university as a whole. This exhibition is yet another type of critical and artistic inquiry as a response to repressive times happening in CFA with other critical collaborations within the university. Now I would like to draw upon an excerpt from a recent work that I completed with my friend and my colleague, Dr. Michelle Hammers, an essay entitled Diversity Thugs, Intersections of the Academic, Personal, and Political. The essay as a whole explores questions of what it means to participate in publicness, to be both discursively and physically in public places, and to perform functionally and perform productively our identities as citizens of local, national, and global communities. Using a multiple collaborative autoethnographic approach, we further theorize on the relationality and emotionality and affect of both public response and collaborative method, which I believe applies to the theme of critical and artistic response as I'm developing at this moment. She didn't know I was doing this. The essay was triggered by a message on the Communication Research Network, CritNet, a consistent contributor and provocateur on the listserv issued a statement that both engaged and enraged many. He wrote, "Diversity thugs are one of the few truly transparent conspiracies in modern society." And he was talking about a whole lot of crazy shit. That also invoked a marketplace as a metaphor for the exchange of ideas in public arena. This metaphor for him presumes that individuals will embrace stronger arguments and good ideas eventually drive weaker arguments and bad ideas out of the marketplace. Of course, in the marketplace, good and bad are relative depending on the valorization by that particular market. Good is only good if enough people buy into it. Bad is only bad if enough people reject it, and maybe also build the foundation for repressive social environments relative to the specific intent of that argument. But in different ways, Dr. Hammers and I wanted to address and use the phrase diversity thug for our own purposes, and to engage in a discourse committed to a politics of resistance, a politics of possibility, of politics that dares to dream of social justice, to dream of equity, peace, and a world without violence. After a series of exchanges within the final paper, and I abbreviate her significant contributions here only for time, right? Dr. Hammer writes, and I won't do my impersonation, but she writes, "I may not be a thug, but that doesn't mean that I will yield the floor, stage, platform, public sidewalk, or yes, the classroom, just so intellectual, political, public gatekeepers can keep on doing what they've always done." She writes, "For those who have traditionally had the most to say from the largest and most influential platforms available to cry foul now that they are no longer in full control of public narratives is disingenuous at best and hypocritical at worst. They cry foul and I call bullshit." Hashtag Charlottesville. The gatekeepers have lost the key and still they wonder why we storm the gates. And I respond, "But I want to be a diversity thug." I confess that all my life I wanted to be a thug. Not that violent, criminal, antisocial, ne'er-do-well, but maybe closer to how Tupac Shakur defined a thug, as someone who is going through struggles, has gone through struggles, and continues to live day by day with nothing for them. That person is a thug, and the life that they are living is the thug life. See, y'all, I'm citing Tupac here, right? What is attractive is the articulation of struggle, and consequently survival in the everydayness of being a person, making it by the hardest, as my father would say, or a person striving by any means necessary, as Malcolm would say. And while the construction of the thug has often been rendered antisocial, particularly masculine and ethnically disenfranchised, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it because of the element of performative resistance that's at play here, as in the being performatively black, as being performatively authentic and performatively present and persistent, which works at the intersections of being a black man in America for me, though also constructively tensive positionality in being a black gay man at the intersections of academic, personal, and political life, but not really. You see, these are the same issues. A struggle against invisibility, a struggle against erasure, and the struggled regulation of perceived temperament. I wonder, in the academic environs that I circulate, maybe I am a diversity thug. not in my actions, but maybe by my mere presence. But a diversity thug as a person who persistently uses voice and identity presence, the raced, classed, sexed, gendered, intersectional other, with an insistence of recognition and protest, not just the individuality of being seen and heard, but the persistence of arguing for a recognition of the other in the everyday practices of decision-making that often leaves so many of us thuggishly struggling to find our voice and place and space in this presumed haven of struggle of everyday life, of living off the streets, always thuggishly struggling regardless of how we are perceived in our efforts, always striving as a means to a productive end or towards the potentiality of our own horizons. So I am less interested in the ranting of that political conservative who I referenced, or defending a marketplace of ideas as he invokes it, for such voices to outshout the already wretched of the earth, the perpetually problematized race, sex, gender, intersectional others, those for whom the dehumanizing effects of colonialization is still real, is always real, and how the perpetuation of the marketplace of ideas as a strained facsimile of freedom of speech is used to, in fact, reify imperialist identities in the quest to maintain the colonizer-colonized relationship with its slave-master dynamic, the haves and the have-nots, and the sanctioned vulnerability of attack as a discipline on those who would demand humanity as a birthright. So fuck the marketplace if it's used as an idealized space to perpetuate terrorism, hatred, and violence. Spoken words under the protectionisms of freedom of speech or the freedom of assembly that are always used to incite violent actions by sleeper cells who've been waiting, just waiting to hear the clarion call of their leader. Words as violence that land on real bodies, bodies standing for justice, bodies of color, bodies of difference, hashtag Orlando, hashtag Charlottesville, hashtag recent arms rally in Raleigh, hashtag Houston, we have a problem, hashtag Ferguson, hashtag it's gotta get better, hashtag the top 15 global challenges in a prayer for peace, including prayers against war. So in a critical aesthetic and performative move relative to my own scholarly and creative practice as a CFA faculty member and as the dean, I'm saying fuck the illusion to the marketplace of ideas, like a real OG, right? Like an original gangsta. Or is that the diversity thug that I want to be? Fuck the illusion to the marketplace of ideas in this current context of its invocation, even as I practice it within this moment, if in fact the aforementioned illusion is not regulated as a practice space for social good and promoting the diversity of ideas that has the potential for social transformation, for global transformation. It's my brother, Stephen Bradley, Chair of African American Studies here at LMU, who writes in his important Chronicle of Higher Education piece that sometimes you have to disrupt the moral status quo to find justice. This is a protest. This is a plea. This is a call to action and recognition of what we do as citizens, as well as how teacher, artists, scholars, and CFA respond in bold ways, reflecting, refracting, and reflexively engaging our role in making, transforming, and sustaining culture in a habitable place to live. So, I'm using the word fuck partially out of shock value, partially as an expletive of disdain and maybe in its repetition to even partially desensitize the words from its garish and uncouth nomenclature to a bona fide performance of outrage that offsets the perceived snowflake agenda of polite academies that often makes very little progress in derailing the hardcore shit that forestalls progress and, in fact, turns back the hands of time in cultural and racial activism. In fact, I confess, I may have been guilty of this in my past. Staid performances of academic critique that circulate only in audiences of like-minded folk, along with a particular performance of grace that is both appreciated by many and invalidated as weakness in others. So in my current performance of diversity thug, I'm unleashing my tongue to engage the appropriate performance of outrage in relation to my often practiced delicate restraint. I'm using the word fuck. My tongue is untied. Saying the word is not anti-religious, it's not anti-spiritual, it's not anti-Catholic, it's not anti-American, all of which I am, because you see, I am religious, and I am spiritual, and I am Catholic, and I am an American, and I am proud of all of that. I'm not using the F word as a crass reference to sex or even as an act of violent rhetoric. I'm using it as an emphasis to express anger, annoyance, contempt, and impatience. When am I allowed to get outraged? And if you've noticed, I've chosen not to mention he who must not be named, like the great corruptor in the Harry Potter series. This in the fear that such an invocation continually summons his presence, empowers his voice and spirit, and maintains his importance as a threat to deride the world in which I want to live in, as well as my ability to live freely as the Muggle-born black gay academic wizard with no extraordinary powers that I am, but the powers that I have, I try to use for good. This is not about him anyway. The him of my previous reference, meaning the one who created the construct of diversity thug, or even the him who is currently subject to impeachment trials. It is about me wanting to be a diversity thug, right? Pushing for progress. And yes, this is academic, and it is personal, and it is political. My life is on the line here. Our lives are on the line here. So in many ways, on the streets, the highways and byways of everyday life, and even in the ivory tower, which is under fire for its sometimes silence on issues of difference and diversity. How do we prepare our students to be diversity thugs? And if you still have a problem with that construction of thugs, replace it for, think rebels, warriors, soldiers for justice. And if you're fixated on diversity as just a reference of difference in people, think diversity as positionalities, as politics, as possibilities in social being, as a panoply of ideas waiting to be explored, all of which references ways of empowerment, ways to seek justice, ways to make a difference in the world through art and action, through performance and activism, through critical and creative intellect that brings forth logics and reasons of negotiating change. Some of the answers to this question might inform the notion of overcoming our obstacles to achievement, not just in CFA, but in our performance of being Catholic, in our performance of critical citizenry, in our performing and representing the promises of democratization, and our processes of critically engaging a project such as internationalization, to which many of you will be called to participate. Internationalization as an interventionist strategy to globalization, to which we must all be committed to in differing forms. Internationalization as global citizenry. Internationalization not as tourism in other lands or in local communities, but internationalization as global, local responsibility. I strongly believe that CFA's commitment to critical and artistic response in repressive times contributes to making and remaking the world anew every day through engaging art making, art critique, a focus on human social engagement, art engagement as therapeutic practice, and critical intellectual dialogue, and the diverse ways in which we immerse ourselves in communities of need and in communities that need the power and beauty of who we are and what we do in CFA, as diversity thugs or otherwise. Thank you.